September, but I could not make it to Bangalore. Then I was planning to head out there for East India as well, but it's just a crazy event schedule here in Asia. I think at the end of the year, but I'm pretty sure a lot of our folks, are heading to India as well for East India. It's a crazy event with 10,000 people or something. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a blast there.
Yeah, there are like a couple of events planned in India right now. I think it's a blockchain week going on in India, if I'm not wrong. There's also a start
in Bangalore specifically.
Yeah, there's also an event by Start Network, I think probably today or tomorrow, and there's like a couple of more events coming in. So I think like it's a great week in India for blockchain.
I think there's a kind of a very distinguished, I would say, trend across Asia for now is that people would position the Startup Week or Blockchain Week around the Web3, the major Web3 festival. So we've seen that in, I think, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore as well. So Web3 is actually at the core of a lot of these discussions. And especially, I mean, they're getting going down or getting further into the Web2 communities as well. So people have mostly talked about Web3 as at the heart of the innovation, I think for the tech industry. So I think that's also a very healthy sign, but at the same time also is a huge pressure for all of us as well on how we can deliver the expectations.
Definitely. Also, I love the enthusiasm that that basically Web3 has brought up. Like especially like I was reading some articles around when internet was like when they were like early users of the internet, they were like I mean the same enthusiasm going around. So it's almost we are in an era of like internet 2.0. So that's what I feel about Web3. So I think Aryan, let's start with the webinar. I think so firstly, like to everyone who's joining us, we would like to let you know that this webinar is basically for everyone who's firstly transitioning into Web3, or secondly who are like very curious about to understand the concepts around Web3 and different challenges that that currently Web3 is facing, and maybe like what are the probable challenges going ahead. And thirdly, like I mean, if you're already building something in Web3, it would be interesting to hear from the experience of Nicole and Dipanshu and get some insights. So yeah, Aryan, over to you.
For sure. So glad to have you here, Nicole and Dipanshu. So if I give you a brief introduction about Dipanshu, Dipanshu is the founder of Ascent Mantle. Ascent Mantle allows users to create and mint NFTs on their platform. But would love to hear more about NFTs from you, Dipanshu. Similarly, we have Nicole here. She's the co-founder of APAC DAO. They are expanded into 15 plus countries, building for APAC market for the world. Would love to understand more about DAOs in general, considering most of our audience is very new to Web3 space. There would be few people who have transitioned from Web2 to Web3 space. Would love to hear your point of view on this, Nicole and Dipanshu.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Dipanshu, you want to start first?
Sure. Since we're on the topic of Web3 and Rohan, you mentioned the Internet 2.0. So like around Web3, like since I'm a technical guy, like explaining it from the technical aspect, Web 1.0 basically like server, you hit up a server serves you up a static page that you cannot do anything with. Web 2 is when like you hit up the server gives you a page that you can interact with and send something back to it. Web 3 is all about like removing the server from the whole equation, and you just directly like communicating with your peers and like having a service being served up without there being a central entity at all. So at its heart, that's Web 3. I would say that only blockchain is not the aspect that define like that's at the center of Web3. We have like stuff like IPFS. Even before blockchain, we had like torrent, etc. That I consider to be a core parts of Web3. So yeah, that's my like thoughts on like a Web3 per se. Definitely cryptocurrency have captured imagination has
A
come
lot
out
of
as one of the solution, like biggest solution coming out of Web3. But there are a couple and bunch of other like amazing technologies that use cases that Web3 enable as well. Like NFTs, that's what we're building at Asset Mantle.
amazing.
Okay. I think I have a different perspective than Dipanshu because I'm definitely a non-tech person. I started doing community building for blockchain projects back in 2016. And I have to tell you, after 6 years, I think a lot of the people, I mean, still a lot of the fundamentals have not been there. I think even with the blockchain or applications, we're still trying to find a killer use case for blockchain. And just most recently with Web3, I think this has definitely opened up more opportunities for people to see more values out of blockchain than just cryptocurrency. And building up on what Dipanshu mentioned about, different Internet 2.0, Internet 3.0, I think there's a very popular narrative around how Web3 can actually add up more values to your business. It's about the ownership, like verified ownership of your assets. So before we are just talking about physical assets, we are moving to digital assets. But now with blockchain, it's going to be about verified digital assets. So starting with NFTs and even with gaming assets as well. Once people can they can interact, they can own, they can also monetize their assets in the blockchain space or in the metaverse space. I think definitely this has opened up more economies, like different business models as well. So I think that's what's very fascinating about Web3, and that's why a lot of the mainstream companies are experimenting with Web3 so that they can tap in, like the Gen Z, the untapped communities before, and also to experiment with new business models. By the way, I'm the co-founder of APAC DAO, so we are Web3 community in Asia. So we've got 1,500 members, mostly founders and VCs, Web3 players all across Asia. And thank you, OnTop, for giving me this opportunity, because actually India is one of the very promising market that we are eyeing on.
Amazing. That's very true. Thanks. It is a pleasure to have you here, Nicole. It's great that you mentioned that India is one of the best market to actually build from. But I think Dipanshu is from India. He can give us more insights about the Indian regulations and the conservative approach that Indian government has taken around digital assets.
Right. So like first of all, I've been in Web3 since like 2016, 17 like era, and in fact my first foray into Web3 was via building a Ethereum miner, because knew that technology was gonna do great, but in India at that particular point of time there was no outlets to even get access to Ethereum or BTC directly. It was very cumbersome back then. So it turned out for me, figured out that a miner is going to be the best option. And then later on, the next foray I had in 2017 was there was no exchanges back then in India for centralized exchanges for purchasing crypto. So that was my next. Have been in this game since basics of getting access financially. Getting access to these assets was almost impossible, to a point where I'm so glad that India has gone ahead and regulated and defined taxation around. Although the taxation aspect is a bit heavy on it's a bit punishing to crypto holders and people who transfer over crypto as well. There is taxation on top of taxation that kind of happens on top of your profit, on top of the transfers that you make. Every transfer has a TDS attached on top of it. So it is definitely very punishing, and because of it, the recent change that has happened is a lot of Web3 companies are moving out of India, and in fact, the government has started like initiatives like in Gujarat there's the Gift City, where they're creating free economic zones, and one of their major agendas is to bring back Web3 companies to India, and they are letting go of like a lot of these taxation constraints. So like definitely there's awareness within the regulators also that the harsh taxation that has been applied on top of crypto has kind of driven a lot of like big projects out of India, including let's say Polygon being the biggest one out of India currently.
Exactly.
So I definitely think that the regulations are going to evolve, but I'm glad that they are at least there right now. So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's really insightful, Dipanshu. And Nicole, I have a question for you. So I like firstly, like to everyone who's watching this, I would like to say that like recently on top and APAC DAO got into a partnership as well. So we made a partnership announcement. So Nicole, like I mean, I have a question around what do you think about the Web3 space currently in Southeast Asia? And and I think you also attended Token 2049 as well in Singapore. That happened. One of our team, few of our team representatives were also there. What do you think about these events, and what are the events that APAC DAO has in pipeline that that are going to be there?
So I think coming back, I think Southeast Asia definitely has a very different DNA, when it comes to the landscape. Even within Southeast Asia, the countries are, are very much different in terms of regulations and the landscape. So just to give an idea, for example, with the current Web3 landscape, in GameFi sector, for example, then Vietnam, the Philippines are definitely leading the way. Some other countries might be doing better on the DeFi side or CeFi, like Thailand or Indonesia. And we also have a couple of other countries which are experimenting with CBDCs, like Cambodia or even like Singapore. Within Southeast Asia, Singapore definitely is a very special case, because we don't consider Singapore as a native kind of Southeast Asian countries, because they are quite far ahead in terms of regulations and the framework. For now, if we're talking about, let's say, some of the major Web3 hubs, then we have to pick like Singapore as the number one, I think, arguably. We have Dubai, which is catching up. And Hong Kong is still like the old center, the old money kind of hub for people when it comes to fundraising. So there are a couple of kind of areas or different countries that we need to put more efforts in, depending on what you're looking for. Is about fundraising, about the fundraising landscape, then those are the countries that you cannot miss. And for the users and, to reach out to the Web3 founders, then for Southeast Asia, we are now targeting mostly in Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So we see that there is a huge potential in these areas in terms of the gamers, also in terms of the adoption, and also in terms of the founders kind of ecosystem. And actually, these 5 countries account for, I would say, over 80% of the population in Southeast Asia. So if you're looking for real business, these are some of the markets that you have to put down in your plan. So I think with Web3 at the moment in Southeast Asia, I would say it's still very nascent. So after 6 years, as I mentioned, so starting with the GameFi trend, XC, and then the XC phenomenon, pretty much a lot of people have been kind of moving to GameFi or Web3, for fundraising opportunities, and also, of course, to, let's say, to look out for more opportunities to change their lives and make a living with Web3 and with crypto. Now that the trend is dying down, the market is coming to a stall. We've seen that a lot of these, the landscape is kind of shifting very fast as well in the past, I think, couple of months. So I think, of course, like a lot of the institutions, more institutional kind of projects, some of them might be suffering, of course, from the market fallout. So we think that, of course, with CeFi and DeFi, definitely they are still suffering. A lot of the GameFi companies, they are now pivoting, let's say working more either on the games, like working more on the games as like a Web2 games, or they would also have to think about, how to revamp their DeFi features. So a lot of the companies before, when they did rampings for XC, for SLP, for example, in the Philippines, so now they're reverting to work more with Web2 players like merchants, vendors, working more on, let's say, crypto payment, how they can actually kind of earn some hard cash, from the players. So the picture right now, of course, is not as robust as before, but we think that this is also a very much needed market correction. And from here, we can see that basically the companies with real products, they can survive through this, and they have no other way to do this than actually to build like some certain like specific use cases and utilities, not just with their tokens, of course, but with the real product. So that's how I see it. And hopefully that might be something positive about, like Southeast Asian market.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. First, also, like I was reading some articles around Vietnam as well, how amazingly the crypto adoption rate grew there like before. Also, I think like with the considering the current crypto market, I think it's a good time to build, then to like then to get into like understanding the crypto space, right? I think like it will be an interesting space for us to see what how we basically come out of this going forward. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So yeah.
Yes. So Nicole, it's interesting that you mentioned fundraising and how only players who are focusing on utility and actually trying to build value at this particular market condition would survive like this market condition. But interestingly, me and Rohan, we recently attended a metaverse meetup in Bangalore, and what we were able to understand, having a conversation with a gentleman, that he already has insights that in which space a VC wants to invest. Similarly, which approach do you think is better? Understanding where VCs want to finance and then build around it, or else build your passion and then seek capital. So how would you go about this?
That's that's a very interesting question. I don't think I would have a definite answer to it, because if we talk about a lot of the innovations, I think a lot of the trends in the blockchain space, like ICO or DeFi, right? It actually came. The solution came before the problem arises. So everything is still going to be the same. Like we would not have known about DeFi, let's say, if the people have not kind of identified these kind of opportunities. And basically, when these trends come up, people can actually see, or let's say they can see through a lot of the existing problems that we have. Let's say with ICO, it's about, of course, too much centralization in terms of resources, or if it's about DeFi, then how the TradeFi is failing, the trust of the mass, and of course, like how, we are now paying for a lot of the costs, unnecessary costs, if you just want to do like a mere transaction on a peer-to-peer basis. So I think following this kind of narrative, I think it should be like a more balanced approach. We should not actually build on some of the narratives or the preferences of the VCs, because I think with the VCs, they do understand some of the market. I think it took them decades to build up the preference, and of course, the experiences, but pretty much blockchain has been around for just 10 years. We cannot really tell who are the experts in this field. This is what I actually also like about blockchain, because basically you have so much room to experiment with your product. So I think that it should be like a balanced approach. You should build right now. Might not be the best time to build something out of the blue, but of course, like something that can address some problems. You can have it verified with other stakeholders. So the VCs are one of them, but your game or your users are another. Of course, like other kind of players that you have to test it out with. So I think basically for now, to survive in this market, better to bootstrap your product. Of course, if it has some funding, that would be great. But bootstrap your product, do some kind of testing with it, A/B testing, like constant A/B testing. Get more feedback from the stakeholders and kind of work on your, constantly or refine your prototype. So I think that's something that we can actually, share with the project or the builders on how they can actually survive through this market. Maybe Dipanshu, if you have other opinion.
Right. So like my 2 cents on it is like I'm a builder, and since I've been building, like first thought is around what I want to build, and second thought is around like what VC want me to build, or like what a VC is like looking into. So for example, like these NFT use cases have been like building since 2018, 2019. And like the term NFT itself was coined around like September 2017. The first usage of that term was 2017. So have been like a very early in NFTs, and in fact suffered for it as well. So like was fully bootstrapped till 2020, and in 2020 went out raising for we had built a end-to-end like solution NFT like protocol for anyone to like come on as a marketplace and be able to create the marketplace. But like unfortunately in 2020 the whole NFT like craze had not taken on, so like really the pitch to the VCs fell a little flat. So like I do understand that kind of does happen, that if like you kind of have to like position yourself around like what is the current narrative and what people are raising for. But I think eventually, if you believe in the tech, if you believe in like that this is going to be the use case, then being early inside tech definitely gives you the like a huge advantage in terms of getting there first and capturing the most amount of market. When DeFi was taking off in 2020, we all thought that DeFi had just arrived, but like the tech was just arrived, but that was not true. Like a lot of those projects, for example, let's say Uniswap was already like been building and in production for 2-3 years at that particular point of time, if I'm not wrong. So similarly, 2021, like we thought that NFT, like everyone got to know about NFTs, but CryptoKitties was breaking Ethereum for a long time at that particular point of time as well. So I think eventually every narrative gets its chance in the circle. Right now, definitely, it's from what I'm hearing, it's a GameFi NFTs that have taken the captured the imagination of the like PCs, etc. But I'm very sure that DeFi is going to resurface. I'm very sure that there are going to be like naming services, etc., that are going to take over. DID-based projects, I think, definitely are going to become huge in the next couple of years. So, yeah.
On the other, yeah. Sorry, Arya, go ahead.
Yes, I'm actually curious to know more about Inter NFTs, Dipanshu. About if you could give us more insights around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the current like internet that we see right now, like you've got to like head over to google.com. Now like there is a specified way that you know that you can access google.com. There is a URL for it that you know that we have all like learned to use and gotten familiar to. And you go to google.com, you hit up a server and it serves you back a document. And through consensus, and like we take it for granted, but through consensus throughout the world, we have figured out that we are going to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to render this document and display it in a 2D space. And irrespective of what application you're using, be it a browser, be it even a like mobile phone application, they all know how to render that particular document, right? So like I believe that like NFTs could be like such documents of Web3, where like you are able to like access the resource, like NFT, access the document through a like standardized identifier, a standardized like URI, and like DNS, there be a resolver for that URI, and to give you back a document, and the document should not necessarily have to be rendered in a browser in a 2D space. It could be in metaverse in a 3D space, like you get the document back and you're able to render it. So that's what kind of like inter NFT standard tries to define. So inter NFT is like interchain NFT. On top of it, if you change the F to E in inter NFT, it becomes internet. So so it basically tries to define a kind of a standard protocol for defining the interfaces and the metadata related to NFT in such a fashion. It utilizes a new W3C standard that is coming up called DIDs, which enable like identifiers to be like standardized as URIs, DID URIs, which can be rendered into a specific schema document. So inter NFT goes on to extend that like particular definition of DIDs and say that NFTs could be addressed through DID, these URIs, and the document will have a specific schema, and from the front end and also like kind of standardizing how the NFT gets rendered. So to simplify it down right now, for example, you hold a NFT on, let's say, OpenSea, but you're not able to like render it, see it in, let's say if you have an account in Rarible, or if you have an account in let's say NBA Top Shots, like all these web apps cannot talk to each other. There is no compounding interoperability. ERC20, like kind of that interface really helped us, because it helped us form the money Legos that like fit in with each other, and that created whole of DeFi. But those NFT Legos kind of scenario is not present and available with the ERC 721 standard, which is the most popular one. So how do we make a standard that kind of like helps compound the NFT use cases like Legos, just like we saw DeFi? So that's the problem that inter NFT standard aims to solve, that we're building, helping push to Asset Mantle as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, hope that made sense.
Yes, it did. It did. So for an average user, Nicole, how would you define a DAO, and how is it different from a traditional organization?
Right. Yeah, I was about to chime in a bit, about the fundraising part with Devanshu, because we were talking, we were talking about the VCs, and I think a very interesting trend recently that a lot of the projects, they are actually looking to raise fund from angel investor in the current markets. And even of course, like the DAO is also a very good kind of model just to keep things running based on the incentives from the DAO, or from the DAO tokens. I would say that a lot of the DAOs, they do not necessarily have a token, but I think it's also a very good kind of, I think like, let's say visual or manifestation of the incentives within the DAO. And actually a lot of the members, when they participate in the DAO, they do not look for financial gains in the beginning. What they're looking for is, of course, like the appreciation, also the community vibe, and also like about how they can contribute and get their contribution acknowledged in the DAO. So I think for a lot of the projects right now, it might not be the same kind of ICO model, but I think a lot of the projects, they're also looking for other fundraising sources. So one, of course, being the angel investing, and the other one being DAO. And with APAC DAO, to be honest, we haven't run as a full DAO just yet. So we are planning to launch it further down the road, because right now we want to build like a healthy membership first, get the right governance structure, and then we will be able to, of course, like onboard the majority of the members out there. So I think in layman's term for DAO, I think everyone has their own kind of opinion, but I mean, as it stands for decentralized autonomous organization, it's a kind of leaderless organization that functions, I think, around the community. And basically, I think some of the more distinguished, or let's say values of the DAO, is that basically it unites people around around a goal within the community. So we have so many DAOs which have just been set up to, I think, buy an artwork, or some community just kind of gather because they want to do talent hiring, to support with talent hiring for developers. So for instance, So as long as there's a shared goal and mandate, and people actually want to contribute to that kind of mandate, I think basically that's where like a lot of the DAOs just start. And to keep the DAOs going, basically we are talking about the governance structure and, as I mentioned, the incentives. So a lot of the DAOs might not come with incentives, as I mentioned. So it's great that if you don't need incentives, but if you want to think about like how to grow your community, how to actually get people to be appreciated, you know, yeah, in the DAO, token is one of it. NFTs is another thing, right? We have NFT memberships and stuff. But basically, it's about the acknowledgement of the contribution in the DAO. So there are a lot of the DAOs at the moment. We have service DAO, we have commercial DAOs that are running depending on the aspect of the main business of the DAO itself. But I think as I mentioned, the two most important thing is the governance structure. How you can make sure that everyone is having a fair share, you know, of voting or a fair share of voice in the decision-making process of the DAO. That's number one. Number two is to have the right kind of acknowledgement, you know, kind of mechanics for people, either in tokens or membership. And basically, the more people see that, you know, they can actually, their contribution actually matters to the whole DAO, then that's where, you know, basically you can grow the community in a kind of an organic and in a community-driven way. So that's like in a nutshell of how I see, you know, the DAOs are working.
That's an interesting take on like how people traditionally define DAO. So it's like basically building a community and then probably, let's say, introducing a product or service and understanding the feedback from the community and then building after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I have a question for both Dipanshu and Nicole. So like considering, like, for example, for me, I'm someone who's just who's currently like exploring the Web3 space at the same time, like trying to get an deeper understanding about how everything works. So what would you like to recommend or to people who are like trying to get into the Web3 space or trying to understand it better? What would be the ways to, you know, approach that? Like, for example, we can get some really interesting insights from both of you around that. How we can be a user of Web3. So what would you like to say on that?
Yeah, Nicole, if you want to go first.
Okay. Yeah. So I think for me, depending on the role that you're looking for, right, with Web3, I think with a user, it might be the easiest way to get on board, because actually right now, pretty much, there's a lot of these like manuals and onboarding kind of manuals or instructions for newbies. I do understand that still some of them do not make sense at the moment. Still, it's very hard for a user to create like a MetaMask and of course, like, you know, change or switch between networks and kind of course, like, even to maybe buy NFTs, later sell it on another network or another marketplace. So I think with the Web3 users, the most important thing is, of course, to get into this space with the clear expectations of what you want to do. If you just want to sample and experiment the product, of course, put aside some of the money that you are not that you are willing to lose. Of course, you know, to buy NFTs or buy some of the tokens out there, do some swap or buy some NFTs, and then just kind of experiment it. Because I think a lot of the instructions would not make sense if you just don't do it. So a lot of my friends, they have been standing outside looking in for 5 years. And they just got in when the market was booming, and basically, you know, what happened with them afterwards. So I mean that I think this is something very fascinating. A lot of the people also want to join and give an experiment, and so I think it's also good to kind of start with it as a, you know, just to use some of the products out there. We can test out some of the products here, like with Dipanshu. You can join our community as well, where we can recommend some good products for you to try out. And I think that the more you get into this, if you're considering a more serious or professional career with it, I think that's where we can actually kind of also advise you on different career paths with it. For developers, I believe that Dipanshu can give some ideas about that. For me, as a marketing and community builder, I can see that there are so many opportunities in this market for you. If you like the product, if you really want to work with it. So as a community builder and as a marketeer, you can actually work with the global market. You can work remotely, of course. You can actually have some stakes in the company, which is very important. It's not basically the same with a lot of the Web2 companies. So when you receive the tokens, or when you're actually like tied with the team, basically I can see that there's a more entrenched relationship between the employees and the company. And I think that that's something like also very, very distinguished, very different about the Web3 space. And I would strongly, of course, recommend everyone to try first. If you like the product, you like the spirit, because Web3 is about culture as well. It's not just about money or about a job. If you like the culture, you can just give it a shot, and we'll be here to support you.
Amazing.
Yeah, Ivanju?
Yeah. So my 2 cents on that particular aspect. So like as I was discussing earlier, I kind of was was looking inside this Web3 space in 2016-17, figuring out how to get in. So that question makes a lot of sense to me as to like how does the next person like gets into Web3. It's kind of difficult for sure, and have kind of like tried to build around from day one to solve like real world use cases with this technology, and make the whole process of onboarding like as easy as possible. We'll discuss how we have done it at Asset Mantle a little later, and like ask the audience to like kind of give it a try. But I think Nicole has already like answered like one aspect of it, so I would want to tackle the developer aspect of it as well. So with Web3, and I think a lot of us have been traditionally trained to like to be able to get into a technology, they have to like go through like 30 hours of videos, or like a course, or like a big book for like, let's say you want to become a enterprise Java developer, then like go through this like 1500-page book. But unfortunately, Web3 doesn't come with a manual like that. There are no like huge, the closest thing that there is to like a manual, a very structured path to learn something for developers is like definitely Ethereum has done a great job around its Solidity. Like whenever someone logs in and types in how to become a Web3 developer, they are directly directed to the whole Solidity pathway. Although I personally don't think that like developing Solidity contracts is directly Web3, because although Solidity contracts are deployed on Ethereum or on Polygon or L2s, like they could as well be deployed on a Web2 solution as well. So like building the underneath layer is like developing on Web3, I would say. So the easiest way to get in, is like the majority of the information that is required for a developer to learn Web3 is all available on GitHub, since everything is open source. The code is, as long as you have the interest and passion to like go through the code and look at the issues and discussions, I think it's good enough and faster learning than like going through like tutorials and videos, etc. All the tools that you require are out there. You just have to go figure them out through GitHub. And to start contributing as well, like majority of the GitHubs of any project, any Web3 project, have got issues listed inside the GitHub itself, and like you can just go through and see the issue that you think that you can solve, and just raise a PR for it. And over a period of time, the community recognizes you, the project recognizes you, and like one thing that Web3 enables for like Web3 projects is like, since there is no like borders in payments in cryptocurrency, in remunerations, like anyone, a Web3 project can be operated like a DAO. With the no like jurisdiction associated with it, and the payments can be sent to everyone through cryptocurrency. Even in countries like India, where like it is kind of difficult, we have solution like on top that like help enable those teams, those or the DAO like organizations to grow throughout the world. So yeah, the easiest pathway is just to crawl around on GitHub. Build up, like instead of building up your Instagram or Twitter followership, you can just build up your GitHub followership, and just contribute through issues. That's all. With respect to like as a consumer getting into, not as a developer but as a consumer to get into Web3, like we at Asset Mantle have been working on like decentralized identities, if we call it inter identity, that make it like much more easier to like own assets on the chain, with like your wallet being linked to your identity rather than your address. And you can have multiple addresses that you can rotate. You don't even have to back up your seeds. You can, as many devices you log in, the device can generate a key and link it with your identity. And if you lose the device, you can just delete it off, and your assets are just linked with your identity. So to try out that flow, to try out how that looks like, we have enabled this like flow at marketplace.assetmantle.one. So like the login is very simple. It's like a traditional Web2 login. You just in way of backing up the seats, etc. You just have to back up like 4 words, and even if you don't back them up, it's fine. As long as you have the password, you can add more keys and like utilize those. So, and on December 10th, we are releasing the full like launchpad for NFTs as well. So people who are interested to like have their first onboarding, I think can give marketplace.assetmantle.one a try, see how the onboarding works. It's not MetaMask. You don't require MetaMask or any like web extension wallets. It's easy as typing in a username, password, and having like 4 recovery questions. Like you have 4 recovery questions, 4 words to be backed up. And like buying is also like as easy as clicking on buy, like you do on like Amazon, for example. So yeah, that could be one pathway.
That sounds fascinating. I think like, I mean, my takeaway here would be that, you know, like, I mean, firstly, I think everyone needs to define what persona they rather associate with. And based on that, if someone is like looking into like being a builder into the Web3 space, like there are like different pathways. And as a from a consumer side, what I've realized is that, you know, it's a great time to, you know, be an early user of a lot of platforms. There are, you know, a lot of airdrops as well that people can possibly get as well. At the same time, you know, the kind of tokens that companies keep on giving away, that's also interesting. Also, I think like what on top is basically doing is also somewhere around this, like on top is trying to break the borders, make people like, you know, be a part of any company. Basically, you know, like remote workers can collaborate, and you know, there can be a model where they have the flexibility, how Web3 gives people a flexibility to basically explore around things. On top is also giving that flexibility to choose how you would want to be paid, and where, and you know, where you want to work. So yeah, so I think it's super important.
Sorry for the disturbance there. Laptop
That's
standing
fine.
out of Yeah, definitely on top. On top has been a lifesaver for like a lot of Web3 teams operating out of India. A lot of operations of global teams that have like development centers, etc. in India. On top definitely has been a lifesaver from that particular direction. The time reduction in like setting up the structure and all, it's exponential with solutions. And like definitely it's a big critical tool in the whole solution for making like the as Nicole would put DAO of developers around world, operating around the world, making it easier. DAO tooling per se.
Exactly. So that is the primary challenge that OnTop is trying to solve in the APAC market specifically. Like we were discussing previously about raising funds. So there are a lot of challenges that builders face while raising funds, and all of their primary funding is in stables. In when we talk about crypto space in general. But to run day-to-day operations, you and also your team members, they do need fiat, for example. So with on top, we try to make individuals independent. How they want to cash out their compensation, they can choose to cash it out in their local fiat currencies in their bank accounts. Similarly, they can choose to cash it out in their own crypto wallets as well. So that's the idea. Thanks a lot, Dipanshu, for your feedback. on top. Yes.
Absolutely.
I
If you
think,
have.
yeah, I think I have a question like that. I think like you probably would have heard that a lot. It's like, one of the problems that Web3 is currently having, that whether Web3 can be really decentralized or not. That the so I mean, like, what are your opinions about Dipanshu, about for that, and Nicole, anything you'd like to say on that?
Nicole, please repeat.
Okay, let Deepanshu take this one first. I will want to hear more from him.
Thanks, Nicole.
I
So
think Rohan is trying to speak about trilemma. Like there is a trilemma that you have to compromise one of the three things. If you could give us some insights around this problem.
right.
You mean the trilemma of security and yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
the scalability.
Well, that's a tricky one.
Right. So like my 2 cents on that would be that, like, I think I'm a purist. I'm a person like who to send transactions still uses a command line interface rather than go through the browser extension route, because earlier people used to think that it's super safe, but recently we're figuring out that even the browser extensions are capturing your IP and trying to capture your identity now. So in that fashion, in that manner, I would say that if you can't see the code base, if you cannot see like what is it that you are running on your machine, what is it that you're utilizing to say have your money being manipulated or your assets being manipulated or stored. I think in general, like Web3 or not, my thought is like you would not enter into a contract without reading a contract, right? So in using an application is like, and the application gives you a contract that I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z for you, right? But if you cannot read the contract, then would you enter into the contract? You generally should not, right? So like me being a purist, I would say that the user behavior needs to change a little bit in that direction. Like the whole FTX scenario that happened, like me and all the founders around me have been talking about getting their assets off of Success since like late 2021. We were all talking about this all of this is looking a little shady, let's get out of this. So why? Because it's centralized and you do not know, there's no transparency as to what's happening behind the curtains. You don't see the code, you don't see the wallets. Although let me tell you, technologically it's very easy for you to build like a sex where like you can see individual like a person's deposits and tokens. You don't have to make a centralized big pool of like a wallet and do transactions with that only. So like the red flags were always there, and similarly, like there are a lot of tooling that are being built even today that are like kind of a compromise on top of the whole Web3 Web3 narrative. We think that proof of work is decentralized. It's not. Like majority of the like miners on Bitcoin are just concentrated in a few countries and with a few like big entities. We think that POS is decentralized. That's again not true. Like the voting power is like still centralized with the initial like investor, with the initial stakeholders there as well. So like what I believe in is like eventual decentralization. If the plan is there, if the intention is there to eventually decentralize, then that's great. But if the plan does not exist, and if we just say that, hey, this is how we use it, this is how we do it, and it's gonna stay closed source, it's gonna stay centrally controlled, then that's a big no-no. But other than that, I think people are slowly adopting, people are slowly getting to know. In fact, like when initially like username password based login became common, we saw a lot of phishing attacks, we saw a lot of attacks where people will lose their, like it's been, I'm very sure in very recent history you would have seen some of your friends whose Instagram or Twitter or Facebook would get hacked and they would start posting random stuff there, right? that has reduced a lot because technology has changed. We have been educated around how to manage credentials. There are new UX mechanisms that have been put, like two-factor authentication, etc., that people are now like incorporating in, and which has reduced all of this. But still, it is not zero. So similarly, with Web3 also, like the user behavior will change. The tooling will become easier. Eventually, we will decentralize. But I don't think we should make like compromises. We should make like long-term compromises with that. We are never going to decentralize, and this is the way we are going to go.
That's really interesting to know. I think like for sure, like I mean we're going to like we're going to get to be there, but like it's going to be an interesting journey. So for sure. So I think like it's been a great time like hosting you as well, and like and firstly thank you so much for Nicole and Dipanshu for taking in your time for for this. Any last takeaways you'd like to recommend to the audience who are watching us, that how they can like perceive Web3 and what they can expect in the coming times. So,
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
for it, Nicole.
sorry, just want to add on to a little bit to Dipanshu. I think it's always tough for I think for a builder just to kind of to see what kind of compromise or what kind of trade-off in short term you have, especially when it comes to Web3 product development. I think for the user, it's going to be a matter of choice, for the user to actually kind of join into the space and know what are some of the trade-offs that they have to confront, and with this market. When we talk about all of the upside of fundraising, of course, the community power, there's always like all of the matters with, I think, with security, a lot of the problem with trust issue as well, with the fragmented trust. So it's also a kind of a matter of choice, like what you would pick out of this battle. So it's not going to be like I think there's not going to be a definite or ideal answer to this. I think it's just that how the users or the prospective users of Web3, you just have to know what you expect and what you are willing to lose when you come into the space. I think us as Web3 kind of, the people, we actually, of course, don't want to entice people just for the gains. We have to understand, of course, like what they have to compromise, what they have to put on, to put on the line if they move into the space. So I think for the Web3 prospective users and builders out there, yeah, there are a lot of risk there are a lot of risk, of course. But at the same time, what I see more in this space is that it's more fun. It's also more interoperable. It's also more opportunities for everyone, especially for the smaller and indie creators or builders out there who want to do something who want to do like a build product that can actually solve some real problems. So I think it's also one of the ways to try out and to experiment your product or your idea or your concept, and put aside some of the resources that you are willing to gain for this, and then basically I think we will be able to see how it goes, and yeah, very, very willing to support you guys along the way. We can also, of course, like connect, and happy to have a chat about this afterwards if anyone is keen to to get more support from us or from Dipanshu.
Exactly. We will be mentioning about Asset Mantle and APAC DAO in the chat, so that the community that we have spoken to and the community which is very interested to get into this space can for sure check out APAC DAO as well as Asset Mantle. So thanks a lot, Nicole and Dipanshu, for giving your time, and best of luck for the space. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would say like huge shout out to like APAC DAO and Asset Mantle. I would say like I'm also a part of APAC DAO community as well. So I think it's a great community to explore and get into and network with people. Anyone who's watching this and trying to get into the space, I think it would be interesting to explore both at the same time. If you're a remote worker and if you've been like thinking about going remote and trying the remote work culture, you can explore on top. It allows you to basically work from anywhere and be a part of any company from any part of the world. So yeah, thank you so much for the time, and thank you so much for the space. It was amazing hosting you.
Thanks, Rohan. Thanks, Aryan, for this amazing space. Thank Nicole. Your talk was really insightful and got to learn a lot. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks
guys.
a lot
Keep
for
on
your time.
building. Take
Thank you
care.
so much.
You do.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.